This is Salvia clevelandii, or Cleveland sage, also known as California blue sage. So this is a California native. It's also from northern Baja California. Um, and it comes in a number of varieties, but I'm just going to speak to straight Cleveland sage for now because you can find the different varieties depending on where you're at and what nurseries are growing at the time, frankly. But what we're going to talk about covers most of them in terms of how you would use them in design. So as you can see, these have beautiful, really unique flower spikes. They're on the terminal ends of new growth, and they are whorled around the stem. Here's a good look at the leaf, and it's very much a sage type of leaf. It's gray-green with some fuzz to it. And if this was in smell-o-vision, this has an amazingly strong, pungent smell to this plant when you rub up against it. It's got a lot of resin on the plant. I'm showing you the core of the plant here because this is an important distinction about this plant. It's very woody inside, and if you don't cut this plant back each year, you're going to find that it will sprawl, it will spread out, I don't know, 6 to 8 feet wide. It's typically 3 to 5 feet tall. And the one you're looking at here is about 10 years old in my front yard. Now that said, I cut it back pretty severely each year. So I do two things. I deadhead it, which it definitely needs. Otherwise, these flowers you see here die and they stay on the plant. They do not fall off naturally or self-clean. So from a maintenance perspective, I consider this a high maintenance plant. You have to deadhead it or it looks terrible. And also because it wants to sprawl out, you really need to tighten it up by pruning it pretty heavily. And it's also important that you do it at the right time. A lot of these plants, most plants, you would prune right after they've done their their flowering, so that in this area, this in Northern California, this thing is blooming very strongly in May. That's its heaviest bloom. It starts in April and it goes into early June, so it's probably about a 5 to 6 week bloom cycle, which is real nice. But then following that, these blooms die and they turn very brown and unsightly, so need to be cut off. So typically that's when you would tighten up the plant before it starts to push its new growth. The thing is, this being a California native, many of the natives do their growth during the winter when there's a rainy season to support that. And so that for us is winter between November and March. And so a lot of the growth that occurs on this is during winter. So if you want it to grow out of a strong deadheading or a pruning, then you want to do that pruning going into fall more than you would in the middle of summer. Otherwise, I just find it sits there mostly and looks kind of chewed up after you've done a heavy pruning. So that's just something to consider. This is great for dry, more native-y types of plant designs. It's not a great plant for a more detailed garden, and again you do have to stay on top of it or it looks very wild and woody. That said, it takes the heavy pruning just fine. It's 10 years old and it looks the same as it did when it was 2 years old, as long as I do what I need to do to it. So I'd be selective about using this in design. It's nice on a natural looking hillside or a drier style garden where you're using things such as cistus or rock rose, Fremontodendron, manzanitas, and plants such as that. So these also are very popular with hummingbirds, by the way. Most of the salvias are, and this is no exception. These are deer tolerant, very deer tolerant, because they have such strong oils in the leaves. They're also incredibly drought tolerant. They naturally survive entire summers without any water whatsoever, probably 5 to 6 months typically in pretty hot areas. And So mine gets some irregular drip irrigation, and it's fine on that. It doesn't hurt it, and it's still a longer lived plant. And so I think that's about what I can tell you about Salvia clevelandii. What you'll see is to follow is some nice companion plants to go with it. Use it sparingly if you have a normal garden situation, and really good for low water, low drier types of garden designs otherwise.